Who's taking the intro? I thought,
you do it, Charlie. You weren't here for the last one.
Yeah. Hey, it's the
introduce yourself.
Hey, it's Charles of the official podcast. This is episode 308, perhaps, somewhere in that ballpark. We're joined by a special guest whom I didn't get the pleasure of meeting last time. Wendigoon is back. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you boys so much for having me back on. I had a great time last time. One of the best podcasts I've been on, and I mean it, I swear. And it's great to finally meet Charlie. Big fan of his content and all your alls as well. So yeah, thank you all for having me on. Appreciate it.
And we're all a big fan of you, and I think it's very nice that you came back, and I now get to partake in this because that was one of the few episodes that I had to miss because I was in a road trip.
Ah, yeah. Big man doing Mr. Business stuff and whatnot.
Nope, big man with a phobia of flying.
He was scared, yeah. Don't let him get past that.
The phobia of flying.
The biggest of men.
A very brave man turning down a 2-hour flight for a 19-hour or 22-hour road trip.
Jesus, really?
I've flown like 3 times in my life, and everyone's been against my will, so I can relate.
That's my boy. You see that? Another rational thinker.
You also hate planes?
Oh, so much. I took a flight to from Tennessee to Fort Myers, Florida, which is like a 2.5-hour flight. I did it once, and the other 4 times I've been there, I've driven. I think it's a 16-hour drive. So yeah, 3 times I've been like, yeah, that's way better than flying.
Yep.
You guys are insane.
Yeah, every time I fly, it's like a trial of will. I hate it.
It is.
It fucking sucks, but like, it's 2 hours compared to 16 hours in the car. It's it pays off.
You can't compare it like that because the memories you make over those 16 hours are priceless.
Think of the memories you missed, though.
I love those memories. By hour 4, you're remembering you could have flown, and by hour 6, you're remembering what it was like to be having fun at that moment. It's great.
It was so awesome when I got highway hypnosis, but then I saw a cow.
Yeah, well, after hour 10's whenever the elf people start coming out on the side of the road, and they're my best friends. I never get to see them.
Okay, Charlie, all right, so the flight from Europe to America is roughly, from where I am, like 10-ish hours.
You can drive that, Kaya.
Yeah, well, that's not fair.
Come on, that's not that bad. You can drive across the ocean. It's fine.
You can take a boat, you can drive, take a boat, take a train. So what would it take for you to undertake that journey, Charlie? Immortality, perhaps? Or about like
So not even immortality. Like, if someone could tell me how I died and confirm it's not on a plane, I'd be really confident going on planes.
Really confident. If someone confirmed via like soothsayer that you were going to die not on a plane, you'd still have some doubts of whether or not you should get on a plane.
It's true. Like, I'd have no way of knowing if they're being honest or not. They could just be lying.
Wait, Charlie. Okay, so what if the soothsayer or whatever, guaranteed that you weren't going to die on the flight, but they also guaranteed that it was going to be a terrifying flight full of turbulence?
That's fine.
Just a disturbing amount. Yeah, you'd be fine with that?
Yeah. Absolutely. If I know for a fact I'm not going to die, that takes it out of it. Now, if the soothsayer said something like, "Oh, a heart attack," that doesn't answer my question.
Oh, true.
Right, because now, then it's just like, oh no, that could almost definitely be the plane.
Is that why you're afraid of planes, Wendigoon? You had a soothsayer say like an ambiguous death prophecy and you just don't want to risk it on a plane?
I've said too much. Well, guys, thanks for having me on the podcast. No, I hate the idea of not being in control of my own death, right? Like, if I'm driving a car and I the highway trolls convince me to steer into a Cracker Barrel, that's on me, right? Like, I'm in full control of that. But if I'm in a plane and the captain up there falls asleep, which is apparently an epidemic that's happening, I have no say in that. It's just over.
Now let me ask you two something then. Would you guys ride a bus?
I mean, I do from time to time.
Not if they had a choice in it.
Ideally, wouldn't ride a bus, but I feel a little better on buses because even if the driver falls asleep, it's a pretty strong, sturdy vehicle that, you know, isn't guaranteed to kill everyone.
The argument you can make about buses and trains as well is at least they're on the ground. The thing that makes me uncomfortable about planes is, okay, there is no escape. Like, on a bus, even if there is a crash or the bus driver falls asleep, okay, I just get off, right? They even have the little hammers that you can use to break the windows and get out. Like, it's not that big of a deal, but if there's something wrong with the plane, that goes straight down 30,000 fucking feet.
They don't have those little hammers on the planes, do they?
Oh, yeah, they should.
No.
Yeah, which is weird.
Yeah, they should have parachutes.
Yeah, why
in
don't
every
they have
seat.
hammers on planes?
Why don't they have parachutes?
Stop that.
Yeah, something. Hang gliders in the back.
I like how Charlie's argument against, like, the reason he's okay with buses is because if he gets in a fight with another vehicle or pedestrian, he'll win.
Yeah, he's stronger.
Well,
What if
how-
it crashes
yeah.
with another bus?
How often have you been in an airplane fight? Maybe you're in a really big plane.
Well, yeah, but the only fight you have with an airplane is with the ground, and you're losing that every time.
9 times out of
The
10,
ground's
yeah.
currently like 8,000-0 on that one.
The
I
ground
don't
is
think it's losing
undefeated.
anytime soon.
Yeah.
There was that one girl who fell from like cruising altitude and lived.
Yeah,
I don't believe those stories. I feel like it's made up.
No.
The
See,
only
think I
reason I
vaguely
believe her
remember-
is like almost every bone in her body was broken.
And I totally believe it because after a certain height, you're not going to fall any faster.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, but
whether,
that's,
whether
that's
you
terminal
fall,
velocity, right?
yeah,
That's
once
just
you,
a
whether you
sentence.
fall from a plane or a really high building, it's the same like speed. So I could
Yeah.
totally believe her surviving
Which
that.
is generally above the speed required to kill a human being. That's my point.
True, but it's not like a speed that's going to liquefy your bones on impact. Like you're,
yeah.
Well, maybe,
know, you'll take a
like,
hard
in
hit.
that maybe all the other dead bodies just dampened her fall a little.
Oh no.
I don't understand how like some people can die by just falling over them, and then this woman like falls from a fucking plane and survives.
It's
I don't get
called
it.
luck, Jackson. She didn't fall and just hit like a spike in the
luck.
floor or like flat concrete.
Luck.
She hit like a bunch of trees.
Yeah.
My friend, if I survived a
Trees
plane
aren't
crash of
soft.
that magnitude, I would start a religion, and I would be successful at it. People would pray to me because I have the
yeah,
best
for sure.
story. I was personally guarded by God. Give me your
Yeah.
money, and
Do
you're
you
winning.
think she ever took another flight after that?
Probably not.
Probably
I hope not.
because she did the thing that every human being in that situation would do. She sat down and read the death statistics and all of the safety information and said, "You know what? That was very improbable. I think I'll get on a plane right now."
Yeah, there's no way any of that shit ever
Yeah,
works.
let's
Every
roll
time
the
you get on a
dice.
plane, they give you the whole spiel. Like, in case of an emergency, the masks will come down and there's a life vest under your seat and just lean forward and buckle your heads. And it's like, this isn't going to help me when we crash down.
Buckle
Like at a
your
90
head.
degree angle. Well, they tell you how to lean forward and basically get
Yeah,
in
you
like
meant to lock it in between your knees
Oh,
or
I thought
something.
you
Yeah.
meant like how you had the seatbelt. You put one all around your head as well to hold it in place.
Choke yourself out.
No, they
Have you
just tell
seen
you
that
to go into a kind of fetal position.
Right.
Have you seen that conspiracy theory that position's made to just kill the passenger?
Yeah, I love that conspiracy
No,
theory.
fill us in. I haven't heard of that one.
Sense.
Okay, so you know how the pose is you put your head down between your knees and like hands on the back of your head? All right, so the conspiracy is that that's a death position because since you have your head or your neck right where your spine is in the chair in front of you, whenever the plane makes impact, that jolt is just going to snap your neck. And the conspiracy is the reason airline companies do that is so they won't get sued after a plane crash.
Yeah, that's a
Holy shit.
pretty
Sense.
fun conspiracy.
It makes sense. I always think about that. Like,
Families of
it's my
loved ones
favorite-
that die can still sue, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
you'll still get sued. But that's my favorite thing to tell random strangers I get on the flights with. If I have a bad time, I want to make sure they have a bad time.
They should really hire that girl as like a plane crash safety instructor. She should visit like every plane
didn't-
and give the spiel
She didn't
on how
really
she survived.
do anything to save herself. It's just getting lucky. I don't remember her
Wow,
exact.
way to discredit her. What the fuck, dude?
Well, like, she didn't have some kind of secret technique or
With all
jutsu.
skill.
If I remember
knew exactly
correctly,
what to
she
do.
like did some landscaping on the way down. She took out a ton of treetops, like curved through the shrubs.
The
She was
trees are
effectively
apparently
a giant lawnmower for 20 seconds.
The trees are apparently like really good at saving lives when it comes to a fall. Like I always think of trees as being like unforgivingly hard, but when you're falling from high up, each of those branches slows your impact pretty significantly from what I've read.
It's gonna hurt.
It hurts, but like it does save people's lives. There was a
Also, there is a difference between branches, obviously, and the trunk, because slamming into the trunk would probably kill you.
Yeah, or skewering yourself on the middle, like impaled on a giant tree spear.
True. That would also be
There's
pretty
also
bad.
that.
Yeah, like don't do that is what I'm saying. I'm helping save lives.
Yeah, they do work pretty well. I have a friend who's an EMS worker over in North Carolina, and there's a cliff over there that's a famous. I don't know how much you guys are in terms of service at this podcast. Commit self-exit game, you know? There's a cliff over in North Carolina that's known for that, and he normally works the accidents, but they had one guy survive because he jumped, and this cliff's like several hundred feet in the air, and he lived by just breaking both of his arms because he fell into a tree. Just like hit all the limbs on the way down, and
what
was
an
relatively
amateur.
fine. Yeah.
We don't like
Be
to
a
say
man,
that
get
he
back
lived.
up there, try
we
it
don't-
again.
We don't like to say he lived. We like to say he failed.
Yeah. Dude, if you're gonna
Be
kill
better.
yourself, you have to make sure it actually goes through. You don't want to survive
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
not. That
what's the
sounds miserable.
statistic? Like 99% of survivors say they regretted it and would never do it again,
Yeah.
or some
Well, yeah,
absurd
they
number.
say like when someone jumps off a building or whatever, like their
Yeah.
only thoughts are how much they wish they didn't do it.
Yeah.
But how do you know?
Or like from survivers who survived, they're like, damn, wish I didn't do that. Like they're not,
Yeah.
they're
Well, yeah,
not
because
speculating.
You got to ask him really quick
They have a reporter.
as they're falling.
As they're falling, they hold out a little checkbox. Do you regret this? So as they're falling, they have a reporter on a bungee cable, like following them down, writing a story. And he springs back up to the top.
The bungee steps.
With a mic.
He's just upside down, tie waving in the wind. I'm sorry, I'm just here to document. I can't interact.
Tie waving, but his bowler hat stays on perfectly. He's got a perfect little suit.
This bowler hat. This is in the 1930s for some reason.
Journalists haven't changed in 100 years. What can I say?
Bro, if like journalists still wore bowler hats, my respect for them would be much higher.
It all went downhill after the bowler hat disappeared.
Dude, what happened to our society? We used to wear hats in public. That just used to be the thing. You always wore a hat. Now no one wears a hat like that. What?
What are you talking? Everybody,
What?
No,
Everybody
one wears
beanies
like
and
hats like
The
that.
fashion just changed.
They wear
talking
sports
about?
hats and shit. Not like old timey
Still have
like
Like
nice
trilbies
hats
and stuff.
yeah,
Well,
we're
you
not
just want
walking around in
old-timey
top
fashion.
hats.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? They're cool.
Yeah, why
can start.
didn't the top hats adapt with the times? Why didn't
Yeah.
they get like all
I
these cool
think
apparels
because
on it,
they're
like Chanel and
insanely
stuff?
impractical.
Yeah, probably.
Like every
practical.
time you go through a doorway, you have to limbo.
But they're cool, you know?
How did people do it back in the day? I guess they took the top hats off whenever they would
Well,
enter
yeah,
into a building.
That was the thing. You never wore a hat inside.
True.
So
Well, then
it
we
always
can bring
came
that
off
back.
with
Still,
the
like
door.
this will work.
Yeah. Let's
And then
start
whenever
wearing
you're like in a place, you can use it as like a popcorn bucket.
let's start
True.
wearing like top hats and trilbies. And,
Yeah,
You
and-
first,
okay.
buddy.
You start.
They'll look great.
If you still have
I'll
a girlfriend by
see.
tomorrow, I'll try.
We'll follow your lead. Go ahead.
I don't think
You'll
we're
all
cool
see.
enough to bring this fashion trend back ourselves. To
When
be
I'm
honest,
the most dapper man at the haberdashery, you're gonna be jealous.
Yeah.
When did it? What was the time period where it disappeared, and what caused it?
It was probably like the 50s, whenever hairstyles
So-
became more popular than hats.
Yeah, I think the rise of like the individualistic movement, like the hippies of the 60s and things like that, really killed it.
God, the hippies ruined everything.
Yeah, those fucks.
That or people were just shell shocked from World War II.
Hmm.
Anytime they put something on their head, they just started screaming.
Pretty much. Yeah, World War II was a little important.
In what,
Yeah,
hat
just
fashion?
a little bit.
For a lot of things, there were some things that were decided from World War II.
Yeah, I guess a few.
But mostly hat fashion.
Mostly hat
Mostly,
fashion.
it was all about hat fashion.
That's what killed
That's
the
what that guy
fedora.
was so mad about, right?
Yeah, he liked that. Yeah, their little hats. He saw them going into the synagogue with their little hats, and he was just pissed he couldn't wear
Oh
them.
no. Oh no. That's your next video, Hugbees.
The real reason for World War II.
Yeah,
I'm just
nothing bad will happen
imagining-
with that.
Yeah, that should be a banger.
I'm just imagining Hitler as like a Tom and Jerry villain, and he's like crumpling his plans and being like, I'll wear those hats if it's the last thing I do.
Quote of the day, Hitler's like a Tom and Jerry villain.
I mean, knowing that show, he probably was at some point.
Well, he was,
It was a great show.
Warner Brothers villain for a long time. Daffy Duck
Yeah,
and
that's
fucking Bugs Bunny fucked with the Nazis
Tom
constantly.
and Jerry is Warner Wait, is it Warner Brothers?
I think it's MGM.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
Oh, it's
who
that
bought
thing with the
MGM?
lion title, right? Yeah, I remember now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Probably
MGM.
Warner Brothers, if
I
I had
think-
to guess.
Well,
I think
mean,
Warner
to be
Brothers
fair,
did
it's not
buy
like Hitler isn't a copyrighted figure, so anyone can use him as a villain, thankfully.
Yeah, he's public access or whatever it's called.
I mean, Disney did it too. There's that famous Donald Duck cartoon where he becomes a Nazi and he's like, this sucks. And that's what makes him not like the German army. Yeah.
Those old war cartoons are
so-
so wild. Sorry,
So
go ahead.
apparently MGM did create, or I guess own, Tom and Jerry. And then in 2006, Warner Brothers bought the rights to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has
Did
there
that
been
include
a
the
Tom
rights
and
to
Jerry
Hitler?
thing? In 2006, Warner Brothers bought Hitler.
Put that on the
Commercial
Wikipedia.
value. Yeah. The value's going to rise exponentially.
Yeah, I bought my Hitler stock, hoping it goes up anytime now. Buying the
Was
dip.
Hitler a popular name before Hitler?
Adolf was.
Adolf was.
Well, Adolf, yeah.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't exist anymore.
There's a bunch of people I read about for like research for videos that like were like Germanic or in the area and like, you know, late 1800s, and a ton of them are named Adolf, and I'm like, wow, that's inconvenient.
Yeah, that's unlucky.
He also ruined a mustache.
Yeah, it's impressive how bad a person could be that they ruin a name and a mustache.
That mustache used to be pretty common, and then
It's inspirational. What if Charlie one day just ruined white shirts for the whole human species?
that's a really good question. If Charlie commits a horrible act, something horrendous, what do you think he'll ruin? Long hair, hats, white shirts?
I don't think that can happen anymore now.
No?
Oh, it absolutely can. Charlie, I don't know if you recognize the authority you have over white T-shirts on YouTube.
Okay.
Damn.
No, the like a few months ago, I started a stream and I was wearing a white T-shirt, and I was like, "Can you guys see me?" The entire chat, Charlie clone, Charlie clone. You want to be critical, Charlie clone.
Oh, man.
Yeah, maybe I just don't realize the power behind the white shirts here. Maybe.
You need to mix it up a bit.
But I feel like I'm already competing with cults at the moment. Like, I don't know who really has the stranglehold on white shirts, to be honest.
Cults. You're directly competing
Well-
with the Heaven's Gate.
Yeah, those bastards.
I mean, Hitler didn't
Tough
ruin.
competition.
Hitler didn't have a monopoly on the mustache, I assume, before he did everything. So only after you commit the horrific crime do you get credit for
True.
the white
I don't
shirt.
think that.
True.
I just don't think that mustache was ever popular. I've never
It
seen
was.
It was. It
Yeah,
absolutely was.
absolutely was. Charlie Chaplin, his whole character wore that.
Yeah.
that. Well, to make fun of Hitler, I thought. I didn't think that was just his normal
not
mustache.
even close. No.
Chaplin
No.
predates Hitler. So
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't think of it that way.
Charlie
'Cause he
Chaplin was
seen
like,
as the
in
mustache
10
guy.
years, the guy I'm making fun of, you'll see him. It'll be really funny.
I didn't.
He's Nostradamus.
That's how good he was.
I thought it
Charlie
was
Chaplin
only
was
to make fun of him.
Nostradamus.
That
Charlie in his
explains his short
laboratory with
film, The
star
Twin
charts.
Towers.
What?
You know, his famous short film. Everyone's heard of it.
I literally can't tell if you're posting me. I can't.
You know.
Charlie, what a great start to a podcast. Already made how many Hitler jokes per minute?
Yeah.
Look, Hitler jokes are funny. He's just funny. I'm sorry, but plus that's a good sign. We can finally move to clowning on him. He's not a serious figure and he shouldn't be taken as such. I was watching The Kingsman, or The Kingsman. I don't know what the fucking title is, the last one that came out.
Yeah.
And have you guys seen the post-credit scene where they introduce Hitler? And it's such a goofy scene, like, okay, this is where we are now, so he's a literal cartoon character that they're going to introduce in the next movie, and Adolf Hitler is gonna have a fight scene in this like big franchise. That's great.
Didn't Wolfenstein, the newer one, do something similar where Hitler was like an old man, like pooping himself?
Yeah, he was like a senile old man, like pissing in buckets in public and shit like that.
Yeah, but that one makes sense because Wolfenstein is like an alternate history where the Nazis won.
Well, even the Germans, finally, my god, they're the most humorless, boring, dumbass people on earth. Even they're finally having some fun with it. There's a movie called Look Who's Back, and it's about Adolf Hitler getting resurrected in like the 2020s, and he just basically drives, it's a comedy movie, and he just drives around his nation and gets dunked on by everyone. It's a fun movie though.
I never watched it, but the clips from it are pretty funny from what I've seen.
Didn't Taika Waititi make that movie of Hitler as a tooth fairy or something?
What?
Oh, Jojo Rabbit. Yeah.
Oh.
Which I got excited because when I first heard about it, I thought it was a new JoJo's Bizarre Adventure movie. And then I found out it was very different. Now, both involve Hitler, but not in the same way.
Wait, what?
Yeah, JoJo's Part 2 has Nazis in it. A lot of people don't realize that.
God.
I've never seen JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but that was not what I expected to be in the show.
It's a great show.
Oh, do you watch...
Go ahead.
Sorry, do you watch anime at all, Isaiah? Because I don't know why, but the Japanese are like obsessed with German culture. At least from all the animes I've seen, it's either Germanic or Nazis. I know.
Yeah. JoJo's is a fun sell because part one is basically Castlevania. It's like vampires and fucking zombies and all this shit. And then part 2 just goes straight to Nazis in 1945 doing Nazi science. And it's like, no, this show's great. It's pretty fucking amazing.
Now that you point that out, there's a lot of anime that has... Oh no, it all connects. I really like... Go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead. My bad.
I was going to say, I really like Attack on Titan. That new Cyberpunk series was pretty good. I don't watch
the
Cyberpunk anime.
Yeah, it was good.
What I have seen, I like.
Gotcha.
Yeah, those are also the examples. Well, I haven't seen the Cyberpunk one, but Attack on Titan, heavy Germanic themes. I've seen Hellsing Ultimate. I think you've watched that too, right, Charlie?
Yeah,
a lot of Nazi
great
stuff. And the funniest part to me, though, is as much as obsessed they are with Germans, they really don't care enough to hire any German like people to work on their anime. Like Attack on Titan has all of these songs and intros with German lyrics, but it's a Japanese person singing them in completely broken German to the point it's unrecognizable, and it's so fucking hysterical listening to it sometimes. It's like you could have gotten a singer on Fiverr to do this for you and would have been better. But
to be fair,
it's anime.
To be fair, Japanese culture, with how xenophobic and self-centralized they are, they probably literally considered that and then went, nah, Japanese guy could do it better.
Maybe.
Or at least cheaper.
Oh, yeah. Cheaper, for sure.
Most of the main characters in Attack on Titan are German, if I recall correctly. Because Aaron's German, Reinhardt's German, Berthold, they're all like German names. And
and German influence, yeah.
And also season 4 when it's literally just Germany.
Speaking of German, would you guys maybe, Kaya, don't answer this question. Would you guys maybe want to learn German? How about Spanish, French, or Italian?
Yes.
Well, I would love to tell you about Babbel, which is going to let you choose from 14 different languages, including the 4 I just mentioned, and it's going to sit on your phone and say, hey, you chose your language? And you're going to say, yes, Babbel. And it's going to say, well, it's time to learn it. Babbel is the language learning app that's sold more than 10 million subscriptions. Thanks to its addictively fun and easy bite-sized language lessons, you can finally cross learning a new language off your list. I know what your list said. Watch every anime in existence, get on a plane and not vomit, and then number 3 right there, learn a new language. And I'm hoping that now is the time you can get started. You only need 10 minutes to complete a lesson, and you're going to have their speech recognition technology, which will help you improve pronunciation and your accent. Many ways to learn with Babbel, but the way that we're going to help you learn is going to come with a 20-day money-back guarantee. So if you hop on and you're not satisfied somehow, you'll get 20 days to change your mind. Right now, get up to 55% off of your subscription when you go to babbel.com/official. That's BABBEL.com/official for up to 55% off of your subscription. Babbel, language for life. And there are many languages to pick from in this world, many to think about, many to consider learning. But perhaps most importantly is the language of love, which is why I want Charlie right now to talk about Adam and Eve.
Yeah, if you love yourself and love to feel good, you can find so many items to help you achieve that wonderful euphoric feeling. We're talking dildos, butt plugs, the whole 9, a catalog so robust you'll never find the same item twice. Just a million things to choose from. You can always get experimental and find new variations of similar things. Just an absolute library of Alexandria full of wonderful sex toys at Adam and Eve.
That's right. And when you browse that library, hopefully no one's going to burn it down. Because as it stays standing right now, you can get 50% off of any one item with free shipping to the US and Canada. Ooh, excuse me. Some exclusions apply. And you can get that with code DEFENSE. You're going to want to go to adamandeve.com, peruse what you want, say, hey, that looks like it would be good in me or on someone else that I watch, however you want to use it. 50% off any one item with free shipping to US and Canada. Some exclusions apply with code DEFENSE. So you've learned a language and you've used it to seduce a hottie from another nation. And you've gotten her back and you've used whatever Adam and Eve toy you found appropriate for that country. Well, maybe now it's time to get busy, you know. You're gonna use a fun little toy with a out of this globe hottie, but oh my god, you haven't trimmed your pubic hair.
Oh my god, not again.
Why would you let this happen?
I always forget.
Why wouldn't you use the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped? It's going to have the Signature Lawnmower 4.0, which is an electric trimmer designed to trim hair on loose skin. It's going to have the Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver, which is going to help you show off your 2022 self that are unique formulations to take care of the smelliest part of your body. They're going to throw in a travel bag. So if you are with this hottie toddy from another country, you can go back to visit her family and have a little bag to carry everything you need and anti-chafing boxer briefs. Because after your night of passion, you're going to definitely want something to take a little bit of the friction burn out of there, you know what I'm saying? They've also got Ultra Premium Body Wash that's going to solve all your problems with your daily grooming routine in the shower. Kick discomfort and poor hygiene to the curb this year and use the best tools for the job with Manscaped. And make sure when you do use Manscaped and you do a nice, clean, little, tidy job down there, you do it by going to manscaped.com and using code OFFICIAL, because you're going to find yourself with 20% off and free shipping with that code. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com when you use code OFFICIAL. New year, no pubes in 2022 with Manscaped.
New year, new me.
That's right.
Can we talk about...
That's the reason you came back, Wendigoon, just to hear the ads.
Of course, I didn't get to hear him last time, and I'm glad I got to this time. That's really cool that you all got your name
dildos
to be official, or like the code at the end of it. That goes pretty hard. I dig that.
Do you have ads like that with a different name?
Yeah, well, mine's always Wendigoon. right?
Ah.
So it was like / Wendigoon, right? But since you're the official podcast, it's just official.
Yeah.
Wait, why were you surprised by that, Andrew? Like, oh, that's interesting.
Well, no, I thought he was
What did
saying
you
like.
expect it was going to be?
Well, I thought he was gonna say like mine's like manscaped.com/bananas or like something unrelated.
No. I was thinking it was cool that since you all are the official podcast, you get to be the official promo code.
Yeah. I
It's
get
cool.
you now. Yeah, we thought ahead. We thought ahead with this. From
We didn't have
episode
anything
one.
to do with it.
Definitely. I still remember our original conversation of what the fuck should we call ourselves, and the idea of the official Minecraft podcast was actually a contender as a joke. And
Well,
then we dropped it.
the one Charlie never lets go that always cracks me up, because imagine the universe where we called ourselves this: the Stakeover.
Yeah.
I also remember that.
That's such a
Because
banger,
Charlie,
though. Like,
and your quote
goddamn.
was, "We combine the manliness of steak with a sleepover."
God damn that shit. I still think it's not too late for a rebrand. I'll just say it.
That does go pretty hard, I'll admit.
That'll just be the official Stakeover. I like that though.
Yeah, we were talking about what to call the show, and eventually I just dropped we should call the Minecraft podcast as a joke, and we almost went through with it. And then I went, wait, how about just the official podcast? And that stuck. That was the good one.
Is that how it went, or are you just retconning history to take credit for all of it?
I came up with the name. I did. We all brainstormed it, and it did take like an hour. But I remember saying at the end, how about just the official podcast?
Okay.
I distinctly remember that. I will fight that to the death.
So you made the decision at the end, but you didn't come up with it.
I came up with the official Minecraft podcast and then said, well, wait, how about just the official podcast?
I feel like
So
we can
Charlie
go
came
back
up with
through
it.
our Skype. I feel like we can go back through our Skype records and find out definitively who came up with it.
I'm pretty sure it was Andrew. I vaguely recall that. I remember Steak Beard and Stakeover. Both of those go fucking
I
hard.
remember Stakeover.
Steak beard? That's really bad.
Whenever I start a podcast, I'm 100% stealing Stakeover.
You can have it.
Yeah.
You
Treat
can
it
have
well.
With,
Believe it or
Yeah,
not,
with our
Wendigoon,
blessing.
but 3 of the 4 of us don't want that name.
Which is fucking 3 of us are dumb. I don't know what to tell you.
Charlie, I got a business plan, me and you.
Yeah, let's make this Stakeover finally.
It's happening, everyone.
Oh, man. If you did start a podcast, Wendigoon, would you think you'd want to tackle the same stuff, conspiracy theories and dark things, or do you think you'd want to try something new?
I've considered starting a podcast before. I actually technically have one. Me and my friend called the Lore Lodge on YouTube. Once a month on his channel, we'll do something called the Weird Bible Podcast, where we'll talk about like weird, obscure theories and concepts and like biblical literature and like concepts of angels, demons, stuff like that. I'm a Sunday school teacher. He's a historian. So we have a bunch of good convos. But that's a once a month thing we do over on his channel. If I was to start one on like my second channel or something, I don't know. I go back and forth. Part of me wants to do, like every time I do research for one of these videos, there's a lot of stuff I can include or a lot of like tangential stuff that doesn't really fit. So it'd be interesting to kind of talk about those a bit more freely. But at the same time, people are tired of that. Sometimes I kind of just want to talk about Resident Evil. So
So it's a Resident
can I
Evil
ask-
podcast.
yeah. Like I don't know. I go back and forth. I kind of like where I'm at right now because like my one standard podcast is once a month over biblical stuff, which I don't cover that much on the channel. And then every other time I'm on a podcast is like this, where I don't have to worry about any of the pre or post stuff. I can show up, ramble a while, and be done.
Well, neither do we.
You think we put effort into
That's
this?
okay.
Come on, man.
So you said you do weird or what was dark or funny stories from the biblical times? So how do you keep that from... You said you're a Sunday school teacher too, so how do you keep it from derailing into just cringy Reddit atheism, fedora tipping? Like what kind of things do you go over?
Like, how do I keep the podcast from going into like weird atheist stuff? and all that?
Because I find that very interesting. It's just unfortunately everything on the internet, especially like 5 or so years ago, it always devolves into just low effort, lazy dunking. on
Oh,
Christianity.
you mean like the
basically.
comments on the podcast? The people watching it?
No, just how do you handle it? How do you talk about a funny story in the Bible or a creepy or dark story in the Bible without appearing as if you're mocking it, I guess.
Well, I may have misspoke a little bit. I am a Sunday school teacher, so I believe the stories in there and the stuff like that. So whenever I talk about a weird story or point out something that's kind of odd with it, it's never in jest towards the concept. It's just man, look at this idiot, look at this dummy, look who thought this was a good idea or something like that. There's a sincerity to it. A lot of the times, we'll talk about how it relates to greater concepts of the Bible or religious principles.
You're not doing this show to disprove anything. You're doing this show to point out, hey, here's a wacky thing that happened.
Yeah, biblically accurate angels,
I think that's cool.
demonic curses, plagues, stuff like that. We just in the last one we covered Moses and whenever the plagues and them escaping Egypt and stuff like that.
So this is something I've talked about a lot. There are some wacky stories in the Bible, and maybe this is one you could shed a little light on because it's one I often quote when, I don't know why this happens so often, but when this topic gets brought up, I can't remember exactly where it was in the Bible, but I believe it was someone was tasked with collecting enough foreskin to earn their daughter's marriage or something. What is that story? Yeah, can you tell us that story accurately?
Yeah, so to understand at the time, so the story you're referring to takes place between David and Saul.
Okay, great. Now everyone knows when this is happening, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So for context, this was after the God's chosen people established their kingdom for the first time, which was Jerusalem, and Saul was the first king over it. So originally, God was like, Saul's my man. Saul's going to be the one to lead the people. But Saul, it says, gave his heart away to lustful wants. He started to chase women. He started to chase riches, and he wasn't being the man that God wanted him to be for king. So God looks to another man, and that man is a shepherd boy by the name of David. And he tells David, whenever Saul loses his throne, because he's inevitably going to do it, you're supposed to be king. So David befriends Saul's family, specifically Saul's son by the name of Jonathan, and Saul knows that David's supposed to be king, and David knows that David's supposed to be king. But they kind of have to exist in this weird space where every day Saul looks at the guy who's very kind and very gentle, but he knows is going to take his place one day. So Saul starts to resent him for it. So Saul starts giving David these ridiculous challenges. He's the first time David has a story in the Bible is when he sends him a 12-year-old shepherd boy to fight the giant Goliath, right? And the 12-year-old wins.
Oh, hey, that's actually the part I know.
It all comes full circle.
Look at that.
Why do we all know that part, but not the foreskin collecting thing?
Well, you take a guess. There's no telling.
Well, is that the one you teach in your Sunday school? You're like, okay, the David Goliath, who cares? Let's talk about David and the foreskins, everybody.
David the foreskin collector.
Imagine if that myth was changed throughout history. We don't know David and Goliath. We know David and the foreskins, and that's just what perpetuates in our culture.
David's way less cool now. What the
fuck?
David, Saul keeps giving David these ridiculous tasks, and at the time, circumcision was a practice exclusively seen by the Jewish people, by the people of Jerusalem. It was considered an act of cleanliness, so therefore anyone who was uncircumcised and still had their foreskin was an outsider. So at the time, I think it was the Philistines, Jerusalem was at war against. So Saul goes, hey, David, because at this point, Saul's just trying to get David killed. He thinks to himself, if I can get this boy killed, maybe I can stay king. So he said, and he actually, after this story, he tries to kill David twice. He straight up throws a spear at him, tries to murder him in the palace. But before he goes that far, he's like, hey, David, we're at war right now. I want you to go collect, I don't think it's 10,000, actually. I think it's 1,000. I want you to go collect 1,000 foreskins. Just like a completely over the top task. Like, how on earth is this child going to go slay 1,000 men and collect their foreskins? And the reason it was foreskins is because it was proof that he didn't just
kill his own men or steal them out of the graveyard, it would have to come from the enemy.
That makes sense.
That's actually super smart.
Yeah, so because then, like, how's he going to fake that, right? It has to come from the Philistines. So, and he also says, because, you know, it's weird if the king does that in public. If the king's just like, hey, you child, go kill 1,000 men. Instead, he says, if you go kill 1,000 men, you can have my daughter to wed. And, you know, his daughter was seen as like, you know, the princess of the kingdom, very beautiful. So everyone around's like, oh, this is a trial to prove his hand in marriage. But it's actually just so Saul can get David killed. So Saul sends young David out to do this. And the next day, David returns with a bag of 1,000 foreskins.
He killed 1,000 men in one day.
Killed 1,000 men. Harvested their foreskins and threw it on the king's lap. So Saul has to be like, oh...
So this is canon.
This is interesting because there's tons of like atheism channels that try to disprove Bible stories, but they don't ever recreate this one.
Yeah, I've never heard of this.
Can you get a child to kill 1,000 men and steal their foreskins within a day?
I've also never, like, in the stories, whenever you watch like a Disney property made movie about David versus Goliath, David is always the good guy, you know, getting bullied by the fucking Goliath and whatnot. When I had no idea that David was a bloodthirsty foreskin harvester.
Whoa. He was forced to harvest these foreskins. He didn't want to.
To give you an idea of like how much David's reputation was known as that, shortly after that, Saul is walking through the temple, which is essentially the center of the city where they have their worship and all that. And Saul's mulling over in his head, like, how am I going to get rid of David? And he hears the songwriters in the temple sing a song that goes, Saul has slain his thousands, but David has slain his 10,000s. And upon hearing that, Saul gets so mad, he immediately tries to murder David.
Dude, I get it. That'd make me so pissed if I heard someone sing that in a church. Oh, man.
I totally understand why David would want to kill Saul. The other way around, sorry. Saul would want to kill David. If I gave some guy an impossible task to collect 10,000 foreskins and he came back and made me look like an idiot the next day with 10,000 foreskins, I would want to kill that son of a bitch immediately.
It's like it's even not only that. You're self-fulfilling the fucking prophecy, because if David's prophesied to be the king and you're saying, hey, I'm the king, marry my daughter, oops, you just fucked yourself over, big boy.
It also didn't help that every time one of these tasks would happen, David would stand up for Saul. So, like, as soon as that happened, he's like, Saul is such a wise king. He wanted to know that the man who married his daughter would be liable to lead his armies.
So this is literally the plot of an episode of, like, the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon. Where he's like pretending to be nice.
What? Think about it. Why did you just relate that to Sonic? How?
So Saul is Eggman and David is Sonic, and Eggman's pretending to be nice. He's like, oh, Sonic, I'm a great guy. All I need you to do is go to Mobius and defeat 1,000 robots. Anyone can do it, and then you can have this power ring or whatever. And Sonic's like, man, maybe Eggman is a great guy. I didn't know you were such a cool dude.
Oh, right. I see it now.
It's like a Saturday morning cartoon plot. It doesn't have to be Sonic. It can be any Saturday morning cartoon. But it's like you have this comical villain who's pretending to be nice, and then the main character is like, wow, you're such a great guy. And it's just pissing him off more because he's trying to kill him.
A lot of people often compare the Bible to the works of Sonic, honestly.
Of course. Of course.
Chad is saying Sonic is collecting the Chaos foreskin.
It could fill any. You could fill it with any Saturday morning cartoon, though. It could be a plot of DuckTales. It could be fucking any cartoon. You take there's always that plot. There's always that trope where the villain's like, I'm a good guy now. Trust me. Here, why don't you help me? We're building an ice cream machine. And he's actually trying to build a bomb. And he's like, go to this village and ask them if they have this. It totally won't get you beaten up and killed. And then it actually works. That's like SpongeBob. It's like SpongeBob. Squidward, he'd be like, okay, SpongeBob, go down to the rusty bucket and ask anyone if they want to punch in the face. It's actually a greeting there. They like hearing that. And then SpongeBob.
All right, now to The Simpsons.
Oh God, Homer and Flanders. Hey Flanders, go on down to that biker club and ask if anyone there wants a deep hug. They love that. And then Flanders goes and it turns out they're all religious and they all want a hug. Like that's a common cartoon plot. I'm not crazy. Happens all the time.
There was a bunch of like weird, wacky Scooby-Doo-esque plots that happened with David, especially when he was younger.
Did he have a talking dog? Oh wait, he did, didn't he? Or is that Davy and Goliath, right?
Yeah, he did not have a talking
No, hang
dog.
on. What was
There's a talking donkey in the Bible?
what was the
the
Bible cartoon where he had a talking dog and he was like, I don't know, Davy?
They're talking about Donkey Ollie?
Because
there was a donkey.
What on earth are you talking about?
Yeah, I distinctly know what you're talking about, Andrew,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's like ripped from the Bible or anything. I think it's just like
Davy and Goliath from the 1960s. It was a cartoon about
Yeah.
King David, and he had a dog, and the dog would talk. And he was like,
does
I
it
don't
mean it
know,
was from
Stop
Davy.
confusing. Yeah, stop confusing cartoons with the Bible.
This is my religion. This is my church.
My religion is the Bible exactly as is, but David had a talking dog.
And he didn't contribute anything. He just commented on everything.
Did the dog help with the foreskin collection? Or?
You mentioned
That
something
reminds me
just
of the crab and the Little Mermaid.
Yeah, Davy and Goliath. It was made by the people who made Gumby. I remember this. I saw this on
Oh,
Cartoon
of course,
Network
yeah.
as a kid. Yeah.
you mentioned a talking donkey. Is that actually in the Bible? Because I thought
No,
Donkey
talking
Ollie was
dog. Talking dog.
No,
we're talking about
Jesus
Wendy
Christ,
Ollie,
Andrew.
Charlie.
There is a talking donkey. The story of Balaam. Yeah.
I had no idea. I thought that was just like I forgot the guy's name. I think Jim Lyon. I thought that was like a Jim Lyon original. I didn't know that the talking donkey was a real thing in the Bible.
No, it happened once. So Balaam was so there were a bunch of other gods in the Old Testament. There was like, God, Jehovah, the Christian, Jewish God, what have you.
Wait, there's more than one god in the Bible?
They were referred to as gods. It's the lesser gods like Baal, Dagon, Moloch.
Dagon, isn't that Elder Scrolls?
Dagon is the fish god of I think it's the Canaanite people.
Okay, wow.
There was the ox god, Baal, all these different groups of people that weren't like God's chosen people or Jehovah's people had these quote unquote gods that would provide them with supernatural powers. They would perform quote unquote miracles. Like one of the most famous examples in the Bible is whenever Moses goes to meet Pharaoh. Pharaoh's soothsayers come forward and turn these sticks into snakes because they're prophets of one of the lesser gods of Egypt. Now, it's in my opinion and most like biblical scholars that these are demons because every time one of the prophets of the Old Testament talks about them, they say that the demons or the followers of the wicked one, which is Satan, has convinced people that they are gods and performed magic in front of them and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so one of the warring tribes against God's people, at the time, I think they were being led by Joshua. One of the warring people decides that since this people, God's people are so powerful, they're going to have one of their God's prophets fight against them. So they go to a prophet it might have been Dagon, actually. I forget which god he served. But they go to a prophet named Balaam, and they tell Balaam that he's to travel to the top of a mountain and deliver a curse on Jehovah's people. The true God's people, whatever. So Balaam is making his way to this mountaintop to curse them, and all of a sudden his donkey starts freaking out. It rears up, it shoots to the side, and he starts whipping it with a cane, making it walk back forward, and the donkey jumps up again. This happens 3 times, and after the 3rd time, the donkey runs over the mountainside and tries to get away. So Balaam chases it down, grabs a reed, and starts whipping it. And as he's whipping it, the donkey looks at him and says something to the effect of, "Why dost thou persecute me so?"
I like how eloquent he is.
Yeah.
He put on his monocle and said, "I do say, sir."
He wrangled the only donkey who went to college.
You brute.
Unhand me,
Who's
you
the animal
fiend.
here?
Who's the real animal?
Balaam is so worked up and mad that he responds like, "What at thee, ye beast?" without realizing the donkeys talk to him. And then he has a moment, he's like, "Wait, what?"
See, I don't know about this guy, but if I was back then and something like that happened, I would freak out and whip the donkey even harder to make it stop.
Just start screaming.
I might
and
run.
hitting it.
Yeah. I'd be terrified. This thing, I would be absolutely terrified. I would think this thing needs to die because it's an affront to God. So I'd like kill it on the spot.
No, you fool! It's is this donkey not another god? Maybe.
No, so it turns out what was happening is an angel was appearing before Balaam, but Balaam couldn't see it, but the donkey could.
So the donkey was talking to the angel?
As soon as he responds, as soon as the donkey responds, Balaam looks up and there's like a 20-foot angel standing in front of him. And the angel says something to the effect of, "How are ye so blind that the beast can see what you cannot?" And it wasn't like the donkey speaking, or like donkeys are smart enough to speak. It was the angel performing a miracle to try to wake Balaam up to doing what he's supposed to. But Balaam was so rage-filled that a donkey spoke and he didn't think anything of it. He was so like caught up in emotion. It was a miracle that the
Just the Dr. Doolittle moment. No big deal.
yeah, he gave him a Dr. Doolittle moment.
So the
but yeah,
angel-
that is the occasion of a donkey speaking in the Bible.
So the angel was probably like, Balaam, you're not whipping hard enough. God's really embarrassed. Come on, man. Put your back into it.
If I was the donkey, I'd feel pretty used in this scenario, just to be used for
Jackson,
a moral lesson.
I have terrible news for you, but we use horses and donkeys pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Pretty used
For thousands of years.
It's pretty sad. Does this donkey have a happy ending of any kind, or do we not hear about it?
Yeah, he got
again
his own
from the
animated
Bible?
TV show.
I'm sure he loves it.
He lives on forever.
Well, no. What if we mistranslated the Bible? What if when the donkey spoke, he said, "Hey kids, tune into Donkey Ollie, airing Saturdays at 8 p.m."
Yeah, on the Angel Boat Network or whatever it was.
Boat Angel.
Was it Boat Angel? Yeah, maybe that.
It was Boat Angel. Have you seen that, by the way, Wendigoon? I feel like that might be something you'd be interested in. Maybe not for the podcast, but so it's called Donkey Ollie. I really think the guy's name behind it was Jim Line, but I might be mixing his name up with the guy who made Joshua and the Promised Land animation with like the lions and stuff, where he turned it into like a furry thing. But Donkey Ollie is this, I think it's 12 episode epic where Donkey Ollie goes around and basically he is the Bible like incarnate. Everything that happens in the Bible is Donkey Ollie's doing basically. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So the donkey is God.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, he's not God. He's basically
donkey design I've ever seen.
He is God's vessel, and he travels throughout the lands and helps people essentially. So he is one of God's servants, and he preaches in favor of Christianity. And people don't believe him, so they whip him, they persecute him. And I think at some point they put him in a horse race. Wasn't that a thing?
Yeah. So it was chariots. So he had to like drift his chariot around.
Oh yeah.
And then at some point he's all beaten up and shit, and he's like in a manger, all fucked up. And then I think God appears before him and heals him. But it has like these PlayStation 2 graphics.
Mm-hmm.
They even have a musical number when he's trapped in a well. He's like, "I'm in a well."
Oh yeah.
And it came out in 2010, and it looks like a PS2 game.
It looks horrifying.
It's so good.
What's the story behind? Do you guys
funny.
know the story of how it was made or anything? Like who made it?
Yeah, so Chad
I
corrected
think-
me. It wasn't Jim Line. It was Farmer John from Boat Angel.
Farmer John, he even had cameos, like Patchy the Pirate type cameos, where he would appear randomly.
Self-insert.
Yeah.
His name's straight up Farmer John.
Yeah.
Is that a character in the Bible at all? Is it a farmer John?
There's a John. I don't think he was a farmer.
There wasn't like a prestigious animator back in the Bible or anything like that.
On before their time, I guess.
Yeah, we had received some
There's
awesome
a
fan
picture
art
of
about
Donkey
this.
Ollie, like cut up. It's the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's in the
fact-
chat at the moment.
So Kaya briefly mentioned it. We watched this back in like 2015, people were really into the show. In fact, my Discord picture is still fan art from Donkey Ollie. This is
Oh yeah.
instead of
That's what that is.
instead of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, this is fuck, what was his name? It's not Jehovah. What was it? Jehun? I think his name is. No. Hold on, let me look up.
Jacob? Who are you talking about?
No, in my Discord profile picture, the blonde-haired kid, I think his name was like Jehun.
Oh, I don't know.
Sounds like a K-pop star.
Oh,
Jehu. It was Jehu.
It says it in your picture.
Does it? I can't read that. Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, Jehu's Bizarre Adventure. Yeah.
Jehu's Bizarre Adventure. Is that a character from the? I know there's a Jehu in the Bible, but he's like a minor character. Is he like the main guy in the Ollie?
He is. So he's like Ollie's sidekick and handler. So usually when Donkey Ollie's in peril, Jehu's not far behind.
And I think Jehu was the only one who could talk to him too.
Yeah, I vaguely
Could be
recall
wrong
that.
about that.
Wait, so Donkey Ollie couldn't talk to everyone? Only Jehu?
I don't remember.
So.
So is it one of those shows where Donkey Ollie is like parallel to famous Bible stories, and then you find out he causes them? Like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, like
Precisely.
the Great
Like
Flood
he goes
wasn't.
to Egypt.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he goes to Egypt and he frees the slaves, I think, there, and then he, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how it ended. I don't know if he gets crucified or not.
Oh, Jesus Christ. So wait.
Well, they have to commit.
I'm assuming that the animator of this is like super religious, obviously, because he knows the stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's way too blasphemous.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Isn't this like sacrilegious?
No, I assume. Here's what I assume, especially because it was called Boat Angel, the company. I assume this was a wealthy, like, Christian who wanted to make a children's cartoon, and he just
But
hired a
it is
really bumpy
sacrilegious.
team. Well, I mean, you have to pander to children, Jackson. That's like saying VeggieTales is sacrilegious, like, because they weren't talking vegetables in the Bible, but you're trying to appeal to kids.
But you're rewriting the Bible.
Hills is based. Don't.
I think that's more akin
My
to
bad.
what's happening here. I think this guy saw the success of VeggieTales and went, well, I can make my own Bible cartoon and it'll be huge.
Yeah. What do kids love? Veggies and donkeys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Donkey
I know
Ollie.
their
Donkeys, I assume
audience.
it's an animal.
Veggies and donkey.
I mean, VeggieTales
Oh, have I
is
told you-
fucking enormous, so I don't blame him.
Have I told you guys my girlfriend's Catholic grandma found out about me in the show?
Oh no.
She's a little distressed about it.
Uh-oh.
That's a
Yeah,
shame.
so-
Wait,
Sorry,
she had a
your
problem.
relationship.
She had a problem with you dipping your testicles in hot wax for sexual pleasure? That doesn't sound like her.
All right. So what you do is you send her this podcast clip from me talking about the Bible up until Andrew said dipping testicles in hot wax.
It's an
She
educational
might hear this, who knows,
podcast.
because apparently she listens. So
Talk about religion.
the thing is, my girlfriend's family loves me, all of them, and I love them, and I feel blessed. But there's one holdout, which is the grandma, because apparently she's a little unhappy that I'm not Catholic and that I'm unreligious. So one day, and I asked my girlfriend for permission to share this, by the way, but she sent my girlfriend a text, said, "So I decided to watch YouTube and caught episode 278. But with that type of language used, ... it's hard for me to believe that my granddaughter could be exposed to this. You were raised with so much love and care. He's nice looking, has a pleasant voice, and probably very intelligent." So I like how she wraps it up in a compliment sandwich there.
Oh.
So apparently she has since kind of warmed up to me, but she still has a problem with what she calls my 4-letter words that I use too frequently on the show. But I can announce here officially that Grandma is now officially praying for my soul and apparently saying full rosaries for me.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
so
good.
if I combust, now you know why.
That's so cute.
The grandma actually just kills Kaya. They're like well wishes.
she becomes a historian of kind. She's like, I like how he bullies children and attacks pedophiles, but I just don't like how he says the F word.
She's gonna have to perform like an exorcism on you at some point.
My head twists like 360 degrees and I vomit bile.
I hope she asked me to help.
Oh, you can come to my exorcism. It's like a bar mitzvah.
I'll be over there throwing the holy water.
We'll all get our turn.
I'm just looking at Kyle like, Shh, you don't know me. What episode did you say she saw? 271?
278
apparently. I don't know which one that is.
It was with Doug. That's a bad episode to listen to.
That's rough. That's a rough one, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Poor grandma. Yeah, God bless her. That's so sweet.
Yeah, she sounds
Yeah,
sweet.
it is sweet.
Mm-hmm.
At least she wasn't like, haven't we killed this boy yet? You know, it could be worse.
Yeah, it didn't sound like she put a hard stop to it
Yeah.
by any means.
She's just a little disappointed in certain things that you choose to indulge
And
in.
to be fair, she's correct.
my
You
religious
gotta stop swearing on this show. It's pretty off-putting.
Should I use minced oaths? I can just start saying heck and darn.
Yeah, that would be really charming.
Try
actually.
it, yeah.
We literally spent like 30 minutes telling Bible stories. Just send her this one. It's fine.
Yeah.
Wait, don't.
That might not be a bad
Well,
idea.
no, send her the
Wait,
complete
the
package.
Christian-
Send her the complete package. Send her this episode, and then send Wendigoon's previous episode where we talked about a cult leader who cut a guy's arm off and like fucked his wounds and shit.
Yeah.
We did, didn't we?
Give
She
both
needs all
ends of the
context.
spectrum.
I mean, she apparently knows how to operate YouTube, so she's good. She might listen to this.
You think she tuned in every week?
I don't know.
Grandma, I think you're a great person. I love you. Ignore everything Andrew says. Just mute him if you can.
Yeah, Andrew's trying to
telling you.
sabotage your daughter's
The
relationship.
Bible
I love
is
your
about
granddaughter.
Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm not crazy.
Oh, God.
Wait, how does this work though? As someone who's not religious, wasn't ever raised religious, like, do Catholics hate Christians and vice versa?
Not anymore.
Oh, okay.
that it was pretty hard during the Reformation, but we're good now. What happened is, so the Catholic Church ran everything like post Christ, post Rome up until Martin Luther. So, like, if you were a Christian, quote unquote, you had to be a member. It was assumed you were a member of the church body. There's still, quote unquote, the remnant of like missionaries and what have you. But 90% of Christianity was in the Catholic Church until Martin Luther came forward and said that the church was wrong. And he gave 95 reasons why that he nailed to the front of the church door, which goes pretty hard. So Martin Luther separated himself from the Catholic Church in the Protestant Reformation. So Protestants and Catholics spent a couple centuries killing each other, but now we got over it. So
What do you consider the peak era of Christianity, like the Crusades or that Reformation or the old actual biblical times? What do you is like, Christianity?
like what? Do you mean when they were the most powerful, or when do I like them the most?
When are you most entertained by it? When do you think it's like the coolest time for Christianity?
How could it not be when Jesus was around? Like, that's the
That's
peak,
a good
isn't it?
answer.
Right,
Yeah.
that's relative, right? Like, so Christianity didn't exist in the Old Testament, right? Christianity is the following of Christ, so it's from Christ forward. So to be one of the early Christians who knew Christ, of course, that would be, like the coolest time. But at the same time, they were all being executed and hunted down. So not a cool time to be them. The best time to be a Christian's like the modern age when, we're not dying over it, at least in most countries.
True.
Because for most, aside from the Catholic Church and like the Crusades when they were killing other people, for most times in history, being like an early Christian in an area was not a smart move for longevity. But yes, if I could, I guess, be like any Christian, it would be like the disciples who knew Jesus, because that's pretty incredible. But they all, every one of the disciples was murdered in horrific fashion.
Yeah, but you got to meet Jesus.
Yeah, it was worth it.
Exactly. Yeah, it would be worth it. Unironically, that's what Paul talked about. But yeah, it got still pretty hard getting drawn and quartered and hung and stabbed.
Yeah, but then you could
awful way of
hang
going
out
out.
with Jesus, and you could hang out with Jesus in like the VIP section up in heaven.
Yeah.
Probably.
Actually,
This
unironically,
is my OG over here. Come
Yeah,
on.
can you imagine the thrill, the raw
back.
intensity of you walk into heaven and Jesus goes, "Hey, Wendigoon, it's good to see you again. What's up, man?"
Holy shit, man!
And he means
shakes
it.
your
It's
hand,
not, just, it's
Wendigoon.
not just like, "Hey, you know, you're my loving child and thank you, welcome to heaven." It's literally like, "Dude, Wendigoon, it's been so long.
My man.
My
Yeah.
man."
before Stephen was executed, he was one of the earliest martyrs of the church. As he was standing there in front of the people that were about to kill him, he looked up at the ceiling and said, "I see Christ with his arms outstretched, welcoming me home, and God on his right side, telling me it's time." And they murdered him immediately afterwards. But talk about a baller move. They're like,
Yeah.
you don't know God, you don't know what Christ is. And then you're like, well, he's saying he's excited for me to come home. So you go ahead and do what you got to do.
He's up there cheering on my death. That's kind of sad.
Popcorn.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
Get on with it.
yeah, and everyone at the execution is just booing him relentlessly. Boo.
God's up there shouting, "Kill him, kill him."
Yeah, do it.
He's like the fuck.
Yeah.
Do it, pussy. Wait, did God guide their hands then? If God acts in all of us, did he perform the killings as well?
Ooh, that's a big topic, Jackson.
Yeah, it's not exactly accurate.
Yeah, God
how's that
doesn't
not
act
accurate?
through all of us. God's influence is in all of us, but we all have free will. We can all do whatever
Okay.
we want.
Thank God.
Especially if someone rejects God. God doesn't really have a say in what they do. So, yeah, they killed him. I think their killing of him was pretty absent from God's guidance.
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
maybe.
hang on. He works in mysterious ways. Maybe he was up there going, "Yeah, do it, kill him. Fuck yeah. This is going to be so awesome."
Yeah, I want to meet this guy sooner. I want to get
He's
him
going to
up
be like,
here.
"Hey, here, Jacob, come here, watch this. They're going to cut his fucking head off. It's going to be so rad."
I really hope Grandma tuned out by now.
There's one. So it's very rare to get like insight on this level. So I've always been very confused on Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know if that's necessarily something that you'd be super knowledgeable on, but what is that
What are
whole
they?
belief system? Because as I understood it growing up, it was some kind of like spin-off of Christianity or something. What exactly is like the Jehovah
What
Witness
did they
beliefs?
witness?
So, what did they witness? I'm not Jehovah's Witness, so I can't, attest to know their accounts firsthand. From my understanding, they are what's considered a revelatory religion. So there are groups of people. There's religions who follow quote unquote Christian teachings, and then they're like, but wait, there's more. And then they decide years later that there was more that needed to be added to the teachings of Christ in the Bible and what have you. And again, I'm not Jehovah's Witness. I don't know all the specifics. I don't think that it is as out there as Mormonism, where, again, which no offense if any Mormons listening, but Mormons was a guy, Joseph Smith, just came forward years later and was like, I actually have a new Bible, the Book of Mormon, and just added a bunch to it. I don't know if Jehovah Witnesses is quite like that. But they use Christ or Jehovah, quote unquote, as a starting point and then add a bunch of stuff to it.
Okay, so it is somewhat grounded in like biblical teachings, but
Yes,
okay.
from the beginning.
Okay.
But then they add a bunch of doctrine and belief systems and ways to get into heaven that aren't in the Bible.
gotcha. Okay.
You know what's interesting? I think I predict that there's going to be a bunch of people in the comments getting angry and correcting you. And I say that because the last time you were on, we ended up talking about drugs at some points, and crack and meth and heroin. And this revealed an interesting phenomenon that I had no idea about, but apparently our podcast has a lot of drug addicts listening to it. So we're in the comments section correcting Isaiah.
To everyone who's listening to that one, they obviously know more than I do about it. Mine all comes from reading and people I know.
Yeah.
So for what I was wrong about, I'm very sorry. They are clearly.
Oh, I'm not dissing them either. I don't think either of us are. It was very interesting to take a glance at the comments section, and 1 out of every 4 comments or so was, "That's not how heroin works. As someone who's been addicted to heroin my whole life, here's how it goes." It's like, whoa.
Here's how you make
It's
it.
pretty impressive. I'm not going to lie.
Now, yeah, so I do not have a history of drug use, to be fervent on that topic, and again, I apologize for mistakes I said. However, I am 100% confident and will fight people on the biblical stuff. Not that I know a lot about Jehovah's Witness, but with the Bible stories, I will fight people. I mean, I'm a Sunday school teacher. I've been raised in, the doctrine all my life. I'm pretty confident in.
I'm confident in you as well. You sound like you're super knowledgeable about it.
Yeah, even knowing the foreskin story, which I thought was obscure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not even like the weirdest or most disturbing story from David's life, but.
Well, now you gotta tell us, man.
Yeah, you can't be a tease.
Yeah, come on. What's the weirdest one?
I feel bad coming on your old show and just making it a Bible episode.
No, this is fascinating. Okay,
Our first episode of this podcast was literally called Biblical Questions.
Yeah, I was thinking that's what this episode is going to be called. It's going to be a callback.
Okay, how about we wrap it up with his most interesting story, or disturbing? Dealer's choice.
David's entire life, David was supposed to be like God's guy, right, throughout his entire upbringing. And it's even said multiple times that David was a man after God's own heart, which is a crazy compliment. So everything that David went through, God was constantly there providing protection. And the worst stories of David normally come whenever he tried to either outsmart or try to do something apart from God, which he did several times. And one of them comes from whenever David. So this was after Saul tried to murder him, and this is while David was king. This was before David was king. Saul had tried to murder him. It was after that thing I talked about earlier when Saul said, Saul heard Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. David was in the palace playing his harp, and Saul just chucked a spear at him. Tried to kill him. David runs away. I can't remember. There's a point David comes back. Saul says he's sorry, and then Saul does it again.
It's like Tom and Jerry.
I was about to say, it's Tom and Jerry. See, they are a cartoon. They're just a cartoon.
Oh, God.
I think this was after the second time Saul did it. So David's in the countryside. One night, Saul's son Jonathan comes out to David. Him and David are close friends. And Jonathan says that the throne rightfully belongs to David, and that he'll do whatever it takes to push his father off so that David can be safe. So David goes out into the countryside, and there's a bunch of soldiers, because, David's been their leader in battle for years. So a bunch of soldiers defect to David because they see him as the rightful ruler. So for a while, there's kind of this faction split in Jerusalem where there is the people who follow David and the people who are still loyal to Saul. So David's out in the countryside with his army of, I think it's like a few thousand men. And during this time, he goes to, I remember teaching this in Sunday school, and there's a verse that specifically implied he disobeyed God. It was something about God told him that he didn't need to get more men or weapons, but David felt understaffed and that he needed to. So I forget the specifics, but David goes to this nearby city in order to get weapons. And whenever he gets there, he tells the person up front, because, this is the outer kingdom. They don't have all the news that's going on in Jerusalem.
Yeah, of course.
So whenever he walks up to the city walls, they see David and just think, oh, this is Saul's right-hand man. They don't know that currently David and Saul are at war with each other. So they're like, David, what are you here for? And he's like, oh, I'm just here to pick up some stuff for Saul. So David goes into the city and starts gathering equipment. And then while he's there, the guy who let him in was like, oh, we also have the sword of Goliath, that giant you slayed. Do you want that? And he was like, absolutely, I do. So David, he has like the sword of Goliath and all this other equipment. And he travels back out in the countryside. And the depressing part comes whenever Saul finds out that this, I think it was a priest. This priest let David into the city. He executes the priest, his family, and like his 60 followers. So Saul just like wipes them all out because he thinks that they're in league with David. Saul goes crazy near the end and starts executing a lot of people that he thinks are in league with David. Anyway, around the same time, David is walking through the wilderness. He's by himself. to get back to his men who's like in holdout in the countryside. And he comes across, I think it was the Ammonites or the Moabites. It was some group of people who Israel was always at war with. So they see him and they're like, hey, that's David, the great leader of the military. Let's kill him. And whenever David sees that they see him, he immediately drops all his stuff and starts drooling and pulling his hair out and punching himself in the stomach and making like monkey noises.
Oh, that's the classic, hey Arnold, don't hit me, I'll hit me. Yeah.
Hey Arnold.
He starts drooling and like making dumb noises. And whenever the men come out with swords, they're like, oh, this guy's not David. This is some crazy person. Just some random homeless man. So David's just laying there on the ground, like punching himself in the face and pulling his hair out. And they're like,
But didn't they see? Don't they see the sword of Goliath?
Yeah, and then one guy goes, "Wait, no, that actually is David, just being an idiot. Let's get him."
It was around the same time. It was my mistake for saying the stories back to back. This was after he had taken the equipment back to.
Okay, so he didn't have it currently.
This was around the same period of time where he was like in the wilderness.
That's smart.
Yeah, so David, the great king, laid on the ground and drooled on himself and ripped his hair out. They wouldn't be murdered.
I've always found that to be a good strat.
Yeah, I've always found it to be a good strat. Like, get as crazy as possible. Like, I always feel like if you're in like a scary situation, like a fight's about to break out.
On yourself.
Yeah, you take your clothes off, you start like helicopter dicking, peeing, yelling, screaming.
Take a shit. No one's gonna want to fight someone who shit themselves. They smell too bad.
Yeah. No, bend over, spread your ass cheeks directly at the opponent and start shitting.
Yeah,
like, they're
and
not
then,
come
scream, you want to fuck me? You fuck me? And like they'll be like, oh,
I have AIDS.
Yeah.
I don't think he said that, but I appreciate it.
Nah, I'm pretty sure he did.
That was in the New Testament.
Yeah, he started playing a beat and he said, "Don't hit me, I'll hit me," and he started banging on trash cans.
God, I still love that episode.
That is easily the best Hey Arnold episode.
That one goes so hard.
That and Stoop, kids afraid to leave his stoop. Remember that one?
That's another classic.
Another classic.
While talking about wild stories during that time, there was one point where so David and his men were hiding in this cave. At this point, Saul was like roaming the countryside with his army looking for David. So,
when does this man die? I want to hear that part 2, please. After
that
this.
part's wild too.
Saul is a menace.
Yeah, I'll get to that in just a second. That's probably the wildest part of Saul's whole story. So David is in the countryside, and him and his men were hiding in a cave. During this time, Saul was going crazy. He started like kicking out his own generals and getting rid of his soldiers because he was convinced they were in league with David. Like, he was just paranoid. Because Saul's literally fighting against, God's will, and he's like taking himself to turmoil while he's doing it. So Saul goes and he's like, all right, men, we're going to sleep in this cave for the night. And it's the same cave David's staying in.
Oh, fuck.
So Saul and his men go in the cave and go to bed, and David and all of his men are in the upper walls of the cave, hiding, looking down on them. So all of them go to sleep, and in front of David and all of his soldiers is Saul and all of his soldiers. And David's right-hand man, he looks over at David and says, David, now's your chance. You're supposed to be king. We can kill him, kill all the soldiers, walk back to Jerusalem tomorrow, and we'll be the kingship.
There's no wonder in that.
And David says, I would not dare harm a hair on the Lord's anointed. Like, even after everything Saul's done, David's saying, I'm not going to hurt a man God made king.
But isn't he in war with him?
Yes. Yeah, effectively. The men have been fighting for years, but David said that I am not going to fight. I'm supposed to be the Lord's anointed. I'm to be the next king. I am not going to take the life of the Lord's previously anointed. So David hops down from the cave and he cuts off a piece of Saul's clothing, like a little sash of it. So they wait in the cave walls. The next day, Saul and his men get up to leave. And as they're leaving, David calls for Saul. And when Saul turns around, David is standing there holding a piece of his garment. It says, I could have murdered you last night, but I chose not to. I have never been against you. You have always, and he gives this whole speech where he's like, you have always been my king.
And then he's interrupted by another spear that flies by his head.
Yeah. and in response, just immediate reaction, he pulls down his pants and starts shitting and beating himself up.
Saul, look at me. He starts drooling and shitting again.
You wouldn't hit a man who did this, would you? Starts pissing on himself. You're right, the Bible is pretty cool.
That's how I should have told it. Saul turns around and David just throws up. Anyways, so Saul's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, David. Please forgive me." And then like a month later, he tries to murder him.
David, I'm so sorry. Here, come here for a hug within spear throwing range.
Come stand approximately 3.5 feet away from me.
I love the visual of he just has a guy following him around with a bundle of spears. They all just say "For David" on them at all times.
I know, this is like Wile E. Coyote. He just paints a tunnel on a wall for David to walk into.
Yeah, after he held up the sash, he went meep meep and ran away at 60 miles an hour. I'm saying this right now. The creator of Donkey Ollie, or anyone listening who wants to make a biblical show or cartoon or whatever, if you made the wacky adventures of Saul and David and it was nothing but a Wile E. Coyote style cartoon of Saul trying to kill David, I would watch it. I think that sounds excellent.
You want to hear how? You want to hear how he dies?
Yeah, how did he
Sure,
die?
yes,
How does
please.
Better Call Saul end?
So this was after several attempts of Saul trying to kill David, and every overt attempt that he tried wasn't working. So Saul decided to use a more deceptive technique. At the time in the kingdom, any kind of quote-unquote black magic or sorcery was outlawed. It was actually outlawed by Saul. He put out a decree saying if there's any witches or any who use witchcraft, they'll be executed immediately. So Saul decides that he is going to use witchcraft. So he's a hypocrite as well, if you could imagine. So Saul, there was this guy. All right, so it would help if there's a little bit of context. Whenever Israel started, they had what was called prophets and judges, right? This is before the age of kings. So there were prophets who were people who spoke to God and they would prophesy in the name of God. And there's only a specific few chosen prophets. The big ones you hear of in the Bible are people like Isaiah, Samuel, people like that. At the same time, there were people known as judges. Judges were not leaders, but every now and then there would be a judge called forward by God, like Delilah, Samson, characters like that, who would go out to help them fight their wars, fight their battles. The reason they didn't have a king is because God said, "I am your king, and you don't need to have a human reign over you. You can all be free as you want, and I'll be your king. And when you need a judge, I'll bring forth a judge." But the people said they don't want that. They go to the prophet at the time, who was a man named Samuel, and say, "We don't want God to be our king. We want a human king." So after the people complain enough, God brings forth a king, and that king is Saul. So Samuel was the prophet who anointed Saul, who made Saul king. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
After Saul starts to go wrong, Samuel was also the prophet who anointed David. Because the entire time Samuel has just been a follower of God. Samuel's just been the prophet. When God says, "Go anoint Saul," he anoints Saul. And as Saul continued to sin, Samuel was the one who called him out in front of the people, saying that he's become a wicked king. So then Samuel goes and he anoints David. And Samuel was essentially David's mentor during this time that David and Saul were back and forth at war for each other. So a few years before this current point happened, where Saul's just trying to murder David, Samuel died. He was very old. He passed away. So Saul says, "I'm going to get a witch to conjure up the soul of Samuel."
What the fuck?
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, which is for several regards a bad idea. For one, the last time Saul saw Samuel called him out in front of the people for being wicked. So he's like, "I know, I'll get a witch to use black magic to talk to him. He'll know what to do."
I'm reviving my biggest hater.
For some reason, Saul thinks that Samuel's going to help him kill David, which shows how delusional Saul.
Maybe Samuel was the best spear thrower in the village.
Yeah, he had the best aim.
Best
That's
aim.
true.
Yeah.
We don't know how good he was. He could have been
Homing
the
spears.
best spear thrower out there. So anyway, he goes to see a witch in a place called Endor, which yes is the name of the forest planet from.
That's pretty fucking epic. Yeah.
Just
wow,
like Star
George
Wars.
Lucas is a literary genius.
Yeah, straight up just took the name from the Bible where the witches live.
Holy shit.
I mean, he took the story too.
That's correct. He goes to see the Witch of Endor. And whenever Saul goes to see her, he's in a disguise because, you know, Saul's the king, right? And Saul goes to her in a disguise by himself and says, I need you to conjure a spirit. And the witch says, I can't perform witchcraft. Don't you know King Saul will has made it executable? Like as soon as someone's caught, and she doesn't know that she's saying it to King Saul. So Saul's like, I think we'll be fine. So Saul in disguise gets her to go back to her house, and she starts doing all this black magic, and she conjures up spirits. And it says as soon as she does, these spirits and this, the wording that used is insanely terrifying. It's like the ground split and the souls of the dead began to cry out and blah blah blah. And the witch immediately recognizes who Saul is. She says, you're the king. What have you wished against me? Who have you asked me to bring forth? So Samuel appears in front of Saul. So Saul got his wish. Samuel showed up.
A happy reunion.
And he says, hand me that spear.
So Samuel appears, and he says, "Thy wicked fool." Like, think about how dumb Saul's been at this point. He's like, I know God says this David guy is supposed to be king, but I want to kill him. And also, I know God says witchcraft's wrong, but I'm going to use it to try to kill him. So whenever Samuel appears, he says, you've officially gone too far. There was always a protection on the Lord's anointed. God said that there would be, a hand of protection over whatever king he chose. But Samuel said, with this action, you have broke this protection. And tomorrow, yourself and your sons will lie dead on the battlefield.
Oh, what the fuck? Why did the sons have to suffer?
Well, because they stood by him. They were essentially his other commanders. And it was also part of Saul's sin, because if anything happens to the king, the sons would take over in his kingdom.
Right.
So the whole time they were like, you go, Dad. You got it. You're the best. Fuck David. Boo.
Yeah, they were Team Saul for some reason.
Yeah.
Wrong family.
So Saul goes home that night. And the next day, I think it was the Philistines, he's in war against them, Saul is. And the Philistines win the battle by a landslide. They cut off all of his men, and they get Saul trapped in the middle of a field. Saul's chariot is turned over, and he's lying there in the battlefield waiting for the Philistines to come. So Saul looks at his... also, Saul's kids had been murdered at this point in the battle already.
Nice.
They had lost. And Saul looks at his sword bearer, or his armor bearer, because, there'd be like these younger men who would like put the chainmail on the king and, ride along his chariot. So he looks at his armor bearer and says, I need you to kill me. And he hands him a sword. And the kid says, I would not dare murder the king. You can't ask me to do this. So Saul takes his sword, puts it on the ground, facing up, and falls onto it in the middle of the battlefield.
And he goes, oh, fuck, why did I do that? This hurts.
Yeah, he regrets the suicide.
Yeah. We're full circle
Wakes
now.
up in the ER.
He wakes up in the year 2022 and he goes, my God, Davy's still alive. He must be stopped.
It turns out to throw the spear correctly, he just had to fall on it. But he was missing all along.
He had to run David over to the spear instead of throwing it.
He had to pick up David and run. So
I was fully expecting that a sword bearer to be David, by the way, in disguise or something. Like David was there all along.
No, David, so at this time, David was, I think he was back in Jerusalem, or he was just around chilling. The area. So Saul, whenever the Philistines got there, it says that they made a mockery of Saul and his son's bodies. They
cut them up, put them on spits, paraded around them, sacrificed parts of them to false gods, like destroyed their corpses essentially. And whenever David got word that Saul had been killed in battle, he mourned and cried for several days at the fall of the Lord's king.
Who will throw spears at me now?
Is this,
yeah, he was
by the
actually
way,
just
where...
crying because he doesn't have to worry about spears anymore.
Is this where the saying of falling on your own sword comes from?
Yes. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah,
Every
this
day
is
I learn
the
more English.
first recorded mention of quote unquote fall on one's sword. It was a thing obviously that other kings did, I think there's a mention in one of the King Arthur stories of someone falling on their own sword, but the original mention is King Saul in the middle of battle. So yeah, he died because he got a witch to bring back the spirit of a prophet.
Yeah, that was a bad idea.
Yeah,
That was a bad idea.
He should have picked someone else. He should have been like, I summoned Genghis Khan to help me in battle.
Oh, he takes people from the future.
Yeah.
I want. Can you bring back Goliath, but on my side?
Yeah, exactly. Bring back the serpent that tempted Eve in the garden and have him go to the enemy army and do some shit.
Yeah,
There's a
that
million
would've been
better people
if
to bring
he called
back.
the devil.
Yeah,
to
bring back
come
the
fight
devil.
for him.
If Saul's going that hard, if he's like, all right, I'm just gonna, I don't care about God, it's witchcraft time, fuck David, he's the worst. He may as well have been like, yo, Satan, give me like immortal demon powers and let's go.
Yeah, pretty much anyone but Samuel would have been a fucking wise choice.
Why summon the man who's like, gonna show up and go, Saul, you fucking idiot.
Well, that shows how delusional Saul was, right? He was convinced that he was so in the right that he's like, Samuel will understand. He'll hear me
I think
out.
that point's been
That's how
hammered
far
home
gone it
throughout his
was.
entire history, though.
Yeah.
He's pretty clearly delusional.
You think?
And what's also wild about this story is like you hear all that and you're like, wow, I bet David like really trusted in God and was always on his side. No, not long after being king, David kills a man to sleep with his wife.
Oh, huge. That's an
Yeah.
alpha shit.
Yeah.
You would think that after
I
David
get.
showed up in the same cave with his sash and was like, dude, it's done, you're beaten, Saul would have been like, all right, okay, fine. Yeah, all right.
He was for like a day.
Yeah. Like,
So did
that's
Samuel-
it, he
a few
lost,
hours.
you know?
Did Samuel kind of did he just disappear, or did he exist as a force ghost from then on? Did they send him back?
I think so. There's a lot of points in the Old Testament. Well, actually, not just the Old Testament, New Testament as well, where whenever one of the prophets, or a big example is Jesus, the night before he was captured and crucified, he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and it said the spirits of Elijah and Moses came and talked with him and communed with him. So there's a lot of stories of people who have died coming to talk to people on earth, and they're almost all peaceful. They're almost all this is a person who lived a righteous life who's coming back to give encouragement to those who need it, like Jesus. But when Saul did it, it was the opposite of that.
It was a vengeful spirit. He brought back the
It was a
first
vengeful
poltergeist.
spirit. Yeah, it was fire. It was anger. So it can be imagined after that, Samuel just reassumed his place in heaven.
Yeah.
But he came down for a couple minutes to lay it on Saul and tell him that he's going to die and it's his fault.
Well, yeah, that's kind of even more fucked up if he was dragged out of heaven just to talk to Saul one last time. I'm pretty pissed too.
Listening to
you don't
harps,
think,
looking at naked, beautiful angels, and then all of a sudden you're staring at this fucking maniac again.
You don't think
He's just rambling.
You don't think God would have wanted to stop that? Like he saw Samuel fading away and he was like, no, don't go.
If I had to guess, considering Samuel was a prophet and talked to God directly his whole life, I can imagine God and Samuel in heaven, and they see what Saul's doing, going to a witch,
So-
and he
so
looks
you
at Samuel.
think-
He's like, "I need you to tell him one more thing."
So it was a case of they're just sitting on beanbag chairs playing Smash Brothers, and Samuel's like, hang on, I gotta take care of something real quick. I'll be right back.
Oh, hold on, I gotta take this
Yeah,
call.
real quick, hang on. He comes back, what I miss.
Don't worry, Saul will be here in 2 minutes.
He just sits back down. Saul says hi.
Cringe.
Saul says hi. Saul says hi.
All right.
Heaven sounds like fun.
So yeah, that was Saul. He was a goofus. He goofed up a lot.
Yeah, he seems like a real goober.
But he really redeemed himself in that TV show that came out recently.
Yeah, he was really good in
Yeah.
that show.
He was a good lawyer.
Yeah, really
Such a
came out
good
even
actor.
in the end if you think about it.
Yeah.
Loves feet though. All right, so yeah, let's wrap there. That's a good note to end on. Soul's demise.
Yes, it is.
I appreciate that. Thanks for joining us again, Wendigoon. It's always just such a
Yes.
pleasure to have you on the show. You really make the hour just fly by.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you all. I have a great time. Again, sorry that I came on and did the Sunday school teacher thing.
No,
No, it's
what
fine.
we wanted.
It was
Shout out
so
our stuff,
interesting.
please.
All right. I
Shout
appreciate
it out
it. Thank
and-
you very much.
Including the Sunday School podcast. I want to check this out.
Yes. So, of course, my channel, Wendigoon, which, again, thank you boys so much for having me on. Always enjoyed it. Always happy to come on. The Weird Bible podcast, where it's like me and my friend essentially doing this for a couple hours on end, is on his channel called The Lore Lodge. It's just The Lore Lodge on YouTube. His name's Aiden Mattis. Great guy. Me and him are going to be making some in-person videos soon. But we have the Weird Bible podcast on there where we talk about all kinds of weird and wacky biblical stories. So, yes, Wendigoon and the Lore Lodge. Check them out if you want to. And thank you all so much for listening. And again, thank you boys for having me on. It means the most.
Yeah, thanks for coming
Thank
back
you.
on. I'm glad that you were
Love
able
having you
to
on.
come around again.
Absolutely. Anytime.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was so much fun. It's always fun. Yeah, thanks guys for listening. Everyone at home, thank you. We got a Patreon, patreon.com/theofficialpodcast for bonus episodes. Other than that, just go check out Wendigoon's stuff. He does really high quality content on YouTube, just really entertaining videos. And yeah, check out that podcast that he does as well. I'll put some links in the description. Yeah, go check that out. Yeah, that's everything. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.